All right, this is the main event, everybody. It's all been building up to this moment. We are here to review Star Wars. Okay? 1977, Project 4K theatrical cut. I am so excited to talk about this. My name is Mike L., and as always, I'm joined by
Joshua Mervell. Yeah, this is an exciting one. Yeah, fun.
Don't get too excited. Okay. Anyway, as usual, we're joined by Meteor co-owner Champion.
Don't get too hard on Josh. He just came back from Japan.
That's
of
right.
all places.
and he's suffering from jet lag.
And he's suffering from jet lag. And I mean, Star Wars is great, and the 4K 77 version is unreal, but we've all seen this movie 8,000 times.
But that's okay because I haven't seen this particular version in a long time. So there's a lot to talk about, I think. But first, before we get to that, we have to introduce our co-guest host.
Is there someone sitting to my left?
Yes, there is. Yes. Did you just sense his presence? I haven't. I sensed something I haven't sensed since. Okay. Anyway, we're joined by Ryan. Thanks for coming back, Ryan. I mean, I kind of got the hint that you wanted to be on this episode because of your T-shirt. Your yes.
My Boba Fett t-shirt?
Yes.
Yeah, I just found these on Marketplace just before I came here. I heard a lot about this film, and I wanted to see what was up.
First time,
immerse yourself in it. Yeah.
So did you wash them first before you... Marketplace?
You know, it's funny is this movie could have bombed. It could have bombed, and this could have been a cult hit. But we would still be talking about it 40 years later. I think. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, this could have been like Logan's Run. This could have been like Midnight Run. I'm just making up title. I don't even know. But there's Battlestar Galactica from the 70s. Like there's movies that came out, they bombed. This movie happened to catch on, but there's an alternate universe somewhere where this movie didn't catch on. But we'd still be talking about it. I think. What do you think, Josh?
I think that we would still be talking about it. I mean, it's hard to imagine a different universe where this isn't a thing.
Yes,
but. Yeah, I'm sure that we would still be talking about it. Maybe it wouldn't be as big because like the merchandising and honestly, like if it was bombed, we wouldn't have gotten any more Star Wars.
That's a good point.
Right?
That's a good point.
So like, I don't know how.
So here's the thing: is we just watched the theatrical cut of this film, remastered in 4K, completely illegal. But I think we want to talk about not the franchise. We want to talk about this movie, this movie, and how well it's written, directed, acted, and edited. Okay, and I've always said, and many might disagree, that if this was staged as the play, I think the writing and acting is entertaining enough to be a play. The special effects, take them all out. I think it's so much fun. It's so fast paced.
Yeah, I think.
Josh, what do you think?
The writing is brilliant for the most part. I think that some of the lines of dialogue are clunky and weird, but yeah, like it's ridiculous. But I love it for that, and I think that the cast and the actors really make it work. Like I can't imagine this working with anybody else but Harrison Ford saying some of these lines and kind of like being our surrogate into the movie. Like,
yes, 100%. You need him.
This is all bullshit. This is a hokey religion. Like what the hell is this? Like that. He pulls it off and he makes these kind of corny lines of dialogue work and believable. So
and the thing this time around, I tried to focus on things I never paid attention to before, just so I could have something different to talk about. And for example, like I noticed, so they rescue Princess Leia, and the first thing she does is she criticizes Luke. Like she doesn't know who he is. Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper, right? Then she's now rescued. They're being shot at, and she criticizes Han. This is your escape plan? You didn't have a way for us to get out of here? Like she has laser blasts flying by her head. She could die any second, and she's criticizing him. Then in the middle, and again, they've tried to recreate this rapport in future films. They can't do it. This film got it right.
Like this.
The chaos of the editing and the pandemonium of the stormtroopers coming in cannot be replicated. And then this relationship develops just with one-liners where then Leia grabs the gun and says, well, someone has to save our skins. She takes charge, shoots the hole in the garbage chute. They jump down. And then if you notice, then they argue about the laser blast firing around in the thing. After they get out of they're rescued from the trash compactor, Leia and Han hug. So now there's already development. Then they're back to bickering when they get up to the top. Then Leia says, well, at least he's got courage. And then the love triangle is there because now Luke is already jealous. And then they get, and then it just goes on from there. And that element, you got to wonder, was it George Lucas? Was it, what's her name? Willard Houck and Gloria Katz, who wrote Temple of Doom. Was it the actors? It's a little bit of everything,
I think
right?
so, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Ian, what did you think about that?
Absolutely human.
Yes.
And we don't see an awful lot of that in a lot of films of the genre.
Right.
We don't see a lot of that in the prequels or the movies that have come afterwards. And I think that a lot of this has to do with the actors. There's an ineffable quality to how they interact with each other that I don't think that you could predict as a writer or as a director. You're not going to know how two actors are going to vibe, how they're going to play off each other. And I'm putting most of this in the hands of the actors, and they did a brilliant job. Particularly, and that's a great point, the interplay between Han and Leia. The fact that they hate each other at the beginning does not change the fact that their eventual in later films getting together.
Spoilers.
Sorry. Skip to this time
code. This is a standalone film, remember.
But you believe everything.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing is forced.
Right.
Everything just feels...
And I want to get back to that because I'm going to mention something about the editing later. But Ryan, let's talk about the actors in this film and their rapport. What did you think?
I like when I've seen this. I don't know. I've seen this a few times, but I always look at it as there's three teams of actors in it. When you look at it in 1977, you had the blockbuster heavy hitters like Alec Guinness and Peter Cushing.
Sure.
And then you've got the plucky startup kind of hot shots of Luke, Leia, and Han. But then a lot of people forget that you've got the droids and Chewie as comic relief and to fall back on.
Sure, yes.
So I like that. I think that's the recipe where it's three of them all thrown into the pot, all mix in really, really well. Because as cheesy and as over the top as it is, some of the shots, some of the dialogue, the senior guys, the champs, the legendary actors, they save it. You wouldn't dare question those guys if they said anything, any line from anywhere.
Yeah.
So it adds credibility to it. But like you said, it's the heart of it is the three of them front and center. They're just a bunch of goofballs, and that was, you touched on this was a gamble. It could have gone anywhere. It could have bombed. Could have been great, but that's why it's lasted this long, because those three they've carried the franchise for decades. Yeah.
And we have to say, there are people that don't like this film. Like my film professor at the university, every time this movie's mentioned, he has to talk about the fact that the night it opened, he saw Slapshot. And only the dorks went and saw Star Wars. Well, guess what? If by dorks you mean every
entire planet,
human on Earth, then fine, the dorks saw Star Wars.
Slapshot's a pretty great movie, though.
It is a good movie.
Good movie.
But Star Wars is better, I think. Anyway, and talking about how it could have gone, there's this famous rough cut of Star Wars that I don't know if it actually is you can see anywhere, but there's the cut of Star Wars that was finished, that was screened for Steven Spielberg, Brian De Palma, Francis Ford Coppola, and all of Lucas's friends, and they watched it, and all of them said, "This is garbage," except for Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg said, "You got something here. You just have to fix it up." So Brian De Palma was "Give me that." He took the pen, and Brian De Palma rewrote the opening crawl, and Lucas took the film and gave it to his wife, probably girlfriend at the time, maybe his wife, I'm not sure, as well as two other editors, and they recut the film. And now that I know that, when you're watching the film, there's certain moments that are created in editing. And one moment I always notice is when C-3PO and R2-D2 are first presented by the Jawas to Uncle Owen and Luke. There's a moment where C-3PO is trying to sell himself to Uncle Owen, and R2-D2 looks over like this, okay? Then later in that scene, after 3PO is turned off, and R2 is turned off, and 3PO's trying to sell him. Uncle Owen is talking to one of the Jawas, and he's like, "Well, what about that one?" And they use the same shot of R2 looking over, because that's all they had. They had to create that moment, right?
You could see R5 in the background of that same
Interesting.
shot. Like, I
You know what?
just
You know
blown
what?
up,
I didn't
right?
notice him looking over, but I did notice R5, and I
Yeah.
thought to myself, was there another red R2
Yeah.
that
Well, like another,
I
like,
never noticed that before today?
another famous like weird thing that they had to do to just make it work was when the Tusken Raider
Yes.
is like screaming, they had to just like repeat it. So they like put it in reverse and then forward.
So
reverse,
basically, he just
forward.
goes like this. He puts
Yeah.
his arm up and then just went like this to give it them, and now
Yeah.
that's famous,
Like
right?
a DJ,
Yeah.
just
Yeah, exactly. And there's one more thing. This is a huge thing that they created in post. Okay, the whole subplot of the Death Star. Okay, when they're going to fight, attack the Death Star, the whole other subplot of the Death Star attacking Yavin created in post.
really.
Every single reference to the Death Star approaching Yavin is all overdubs. If you watch the
Interesting.
movie, every shot of Grand Moff Tarkin, he has his back to the camera. It's a readout. It's an overdubbed line. There's no actual, like, Vader says a line, but that could have been overdubbed later. There's no actual line of an actor saying something about Yavin.
One
So
thing
that
that I did
creates-
notice there is
Yeah.
that there's a little timestamp on
Yes.
that display that's
Yes.
showing when the plan is going to be in range, and it never really lines up with what they're saying.
Sure.
Oh, we're 30 minutes away, and you see it's counting down. It's at 30, but it's counting down seconds.
seconds. Yeah.
And then later on, it's 5 minutes away, but it says 10.
Right.
So they just used the footage that they could.
But that's probably it. Yeah, exactly. But it creates more suspense because not only are they trying to blow up the Death Star, they're about to get killed. And if you notice, at that moment, they're about to, they actually activate the dong, and then just at that moment, they're flying away and then it blows up. So it's beautiful. Anyway.
Was that
Yeah.
footage reused as well?
I think it
of the
was.
people's-
Oh,
yeah.
I think it was 100. If you watch it, if not, maybe a different take. But yeah, definitely.
Quite a few scenes too. Entering the trench as well when they're
Yeah,
going
they
to-
do
Yeah,
that at
they
least
reuse
twice.
it when it flies down into the thing.
I feel like even Darth Vader, when he's in his bomber and he constantly is like,
Yes, he's constantly
touching that little dial on his thing. He's like,
Yes.
enhanced.
Wish it was easier to fly this thing.
yeah,
Yes.
like every time they cut to him, he's
Little
So
tiny
yeah,
steering wheel.
Yeah.
let's talk about anomalies of editing. Okay, there's another thing. When they go into the bar, first of all, classic scene.
Great.
Classic scene.
Yeah.
There's this weird section where they go into the bar and there's like 90 seconds of no dialogue. It's like all of a sudden Obi-Wan's at the bar and he's talking to the guy with the sideburns. And then it kind of cuts away and it cuts back and then he's talking to Chewbacca. And it's just this weird sequence where there's no actual dialogue. And then the camera's behind Luke and the bartender comes up and you don't hear anything, but he orders a drink, right? There's just those weird moments where I'm assuming the editors were cobbling together whatever they could to create a logical sequence, right? And then that climaxes with Obi-Wan cutting off the guy's arm. But then if you notice, all of a sudden then Han's, like when Harrison Ford comes on screen, his moment, it opens like this. He's like here. It's like Han Solo, the Millennium Falcon. It's like, who knows what was, there was probably a few seconds before that, but they just started that exact beat and it just goes, right? Ryan, what are you thinking?
I'm confused. Are you forgetting that Cantina Band was front and center as well? They were kind of the big deal.
Yeah.
Because no joke, when we watched it tonight, I was at the back of the right hand side, and the whole crowd was, as soon as the first beat hit, everyone was like right into it, snapping fingers, tapping
Yeah,
feet.
it's so groovy.
It was so good. It's I'm sure a million people have had it as a ringtone or message or whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. So no dialogue because you've got to let it just shine. Just let the Cantina.
And also, after he cuts off the arm, everyone goes back to their drinks.
For
and
a
then,
second.
and
Same
then,
song, right back into
It is
it.
so funny,
yeah, I
right?
love that.
There's just so many great moments like that. And we were talking about it with one of our pals tonight. There's a lot of rough edges in this original film. Like, for example, Luke is practicing with his blast shield down with that little thing. And Obi-Wan is sitting in the foreground and he's coaching Luke. And in the background, Harrison Ford is looking at like a panel, and he turns around and he starts to say a line. He goes, and then it cuts. but in the prequels, you would never see a bad take like that, right? They would have split screened that, blue screened it out, CGI'd his face, right?
Yeah, I see what
like,
you're saying, yeah.
So this movie has those rough edges, and I think even though, and this is the thing, is this is what I felt when I saw these re-released in 1997. Even though Empire was always my favorite, and it's the best, I appreciated the roughness of this one, the spontaneity, and this movie felt like it was a little bit of, you didn't know where it was going, right? The tone was a little bit weird. The shots were a little bit weird, right? Where you could feel them kind of making it up as they went along. Actually, when I was ordering my drink, I was at the back of the bar. The shot where R2 first clicks into the computer and they're all watching the readout. It's like no dialogue. There's silence, and in the different edits, they added in like audio, somebody reading something, like, oh, whatever. But no, it's better to leave it silent because it's awkward.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's an awkward edit, but it makes it more magical, I feel like. You know what I mean?
I never picked up on like the awkwardness of a lot of this stuff, but it does have a lot more empty space.
Yeah.
Both in terms of audio and visually. And I think that makes it work.
I guess awkward, I'm not saying it's bad awkward. I'm saying it's like, it sticks out in a way that even Lucas was like, oh, we have to polish that. But I'm saying, no, leave it. Like when the stormtrooper bumps his head, I'm saying it's spontaneous, it's accidental, but any random person could have bumped their head. But then Lucas goes, we have to explain it. So we have to show Jango. You know about this? And you know in Attack of the Clones, Lucas wrote in Jango Fett running up the ramp and hitting his head to explain why a stormtrooper in A New Hope bumped his head. Did you know that? That's a true story.
What? That doesn't even make any sense.
No, it's idiotic.
Dumbest.
Because the stormtroopers aren't even clones.
Well,
Is that a continuity thing from like decades before?
yes, that's what I'm saying. Is like all these spontaneous things. Lucas shaved off the rough edges.
Are we sure it wasn't just like an homage to
Oh,
it?
no. He says in the commentary, well, we had to explain why the stormtroopers
Okay,
were
that's
clumsy,
fair.
so we added in the shot of Jango Fett bumping his head. It's true. That's how effed up the world is right now. Can you believe this? Anyway,
now.
Yeah, it's because of this. Okay, so I've been talking too much. I've been talking with the editing. Ryan, you got your R2-D2 sweater on.
Is that what this is?
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? Do you like R2-D2?
Yeah,
He's so
hilarious.
awesome in this movie.
He lives on throughout pretty much every film, and he's constantly saving the day all the time. He's the go-to. He's the MacGyver of the Star Wars world. He kind
You could say that, yeah.
But you were talking too much, Mike.
No.
I was trying to think back to any of the points you made, but yeah.
I'll just say
Ryan's
this.
in listening mode. Now you put him on the spot.
He's essential to this movie.
I think that he is the perfect robot in any movie ever.
You mean droid?
Droid.
What is he talking about?
I'm saying
No,
like
I know.
in any
Of course.
franchise, I think that what they did with essentially a trash can with two legs
Yes.
is brilliant. The fact that we can like put so much emotion to this
Yes.
character that is like nothing, like literally just a tube is fantastic.
Technically, the trash can with two legs was on the giant ship where the jaw was and whatever.
Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
That's one of my favorite droids, so
Yeah.
it's
The
just so
fact is
ridiculous.
like we had people here age range from 19 to 49 probably, and everybody is enjoying the banter between C-3PO and R2. Everybody's laughing at all the gags, right? Like when C-3PO kicks R2-D2, everyone laughs at that, right? And even again, the heart of this film, where not only the development of Leia and Luke and Han, but even C-3PO and R2 being separated momentarily, just for 5 minutes of screen time. But when they reunite, there's that feeling of R2-D2, it is you, right? It's beautiful.
Which is like not needed. It's one of like the most pointless moments I think in the movie, but I like it.
I love it.
Like there's no reason for them to
It
separate.
kind of shows how codependent the two of them are.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And it sets up that they're always going to be together. This is a pair.
Even though they're arguing.
Get used to it.
Yeah.
Nothing is going to pull these two apart. And that's established very early on.
They've been through a lot. Yeah.
I think one thing, I know what you mean. One thing, Josh, because I remember, not only have I seen this a million times, I remember every time I watched it and what I felt when I watched it. And when I rewatched it in 1993, one of the things I remember is that I felt like that second sequence was slow when the droids are on the planet. But then when I rewatched it again in 1994, I remember thinking that no. Even it's like super fast opening sequence and then slow sequence, almost like episodes of like Flash Gordon. Like episode 1 is fast, episode 2 is this, 10-minute episode, 10-minute episode. But I think it's, even though it feels a little bit slow compared to the other movies, I think it's necessary to establish the relationship. Like you said, Ian, it shows, okay, they're going to argue, they're going to bicker, but they love each other.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And more than that, they need each other.
Yeah, they need each other.
I love the moments of them on Tatooine. It struck me as odd this time watching it. I feel like I didn't realize, why would they separate? Like, why would they write that in?
I know what you mean. Like they could have just gone. They skipped right from they land to they get found by Luke.
Right, or they could have been walking together and the Jawas jumped them, or you know what I mean. Like I still want to see all of this happening, but it does feel It's I guess it's one of those things where at the time it came out, people criticized it as being too episodic. But I guess my retort is like, so what's wrong with that? Because I think Lucas was going for something different. Like he was trying to recreate the Flash Gordon serials of the 30s, and this is what they were like, right? So,
and in scenes like these two, you got to keep in mind that this was rescued in editing, and we don't know why they originally separated, and we don't know what happened to them when they were apart.
I assume it was probably like a 3PO wardrobe malfunction or something, so they couldn't shoot them together.
Maybe.
Because I know that Anthony Daniels really suffered in that thing in Tunisia, and it constantly like breaking on him. And
well, okay, so here let's jump to something here.
Sure.
We just rewatched Spaceballs, and I didn't love Spaceballs, but I still love the cheap aesthetic of Spaceballs. Brings me back to the 80s, right? And in this movie, I'm not kidding, like to this day, C-3PO and R2-D2, they are magical. Like the imagination it took to design C-3PO and to design the like the plastic that's supposed to be metal, and then the wires in his stomach,
his midriff.
This is a real. This is an android. This is a robot. I don't even though I'm very old now, I don't question it.
Yeah,
it's perfect. 45 years later, or whatever it is, it's perfect. Ryan, what do you think?
That's the one thing I wanted to bring up was you talk about, like, as a filmmaker, as an editor, as a cinematographer, you can pick things out. You talk about the lack of dialogue, talk about the awkward moments, talk about the editing. As I get older and I watch it again and again and again, it's not like I'm not an expert on it, or I don't go back. Like, it's not that I'm tired of looking for odd things. I always tell myself, like, put yourself in 1977. Like, this was groundbreaking. Sure. It was a gamble. It could have flopped. It could have whatever. But the whole space opera thing, I don't know when that came, because I'm 82 born, so I don't know. I came after the film, but I don't know if space opera was the goal from the beginning. Like, it's kind of its own genre. There's always a dialogue between Star Trek versus Star Wars versus whatever, but it is very, very different. It's very unique. It's not the same thing. It's outer space and aliens. That's the only common thing. But you have to take yourself back, and like I explain to my nieces and nephews now, like, sure, the 70s, 80s film looks stupid compared to a brand new Marvel film, whatever. But like you just said a moment ago, like, just the details and the droids, the details and whatever, they innovated, they created some of this cinematography, some of this artistic style, the special effects. Like, we've got Lucasfilms and what is it?
ILM.
They created and Skywalker Sound.
Yeah.
They created what?
He was behind
Pixar.
THX.
Lucas created Pixar. Yeah.
Yeah, like, they were behind so much of this, and that's why, like, people forget that, I think. And to sit down and just watch this movie again and just take yourself back and say, like, Christ Almighty, this is 1977. Like, this is just mind blowing. Special effects today are cheesy, but back then, like you said, like, I watched tonight like I was watching for the first time. I was just gobsmacked. I'm like, this is so cool. The
state of the art when it comes to technology in 1977, when you think that the average, if you had a computer, it would cost you $5,000 and it had the power of a calculator. So everything having to be done with you building
models,
this
sets,
and you taking your camera and you flying it through the set that you built. But even that was new stuff. The optical compositing, putting all these shots together, motion capture and all this. this hadn't really been done before.
Right.
And you say that this might have flopped. This might have been a movie that we wouldn't talk about, or that we just talk about in like ironically or whatever. A lot of that has to do with the effects. Had this movie been identical, same actors, same dialogue, same script, but the special effects were cheesy, it wouldn't have worked. Wouldn't have worked at all.
It would have been like, I don't want to say Star Trek, but because I love Star Trek, but people consider the special effects of Star Trek to be cheesy, even though in 1966 they actually were good. People forget that. But yeah, I even though Ryan, I know that you said the special effects, like this is the thing about the special effects. They were made for 1977 film and 1977 TV. When this was shown on TV, the TVs were this big. Like that's how. Oh, look at, let's watch Star Wars for the first time. This big, 4:3, and you did not see the matte lines. You did not see the differences in the gray scale and the black scale, whatever. So in order to see this correctly in 2025. You kind of have to remaster it for 4K. You have to adjust the black levels. You have to paint out the matte lines. I can forgive that, but I think the actual models still hold up.
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
Million percent.
The chess table is another thing I like on the Starship too. Like
Oh,
when they're
it's
playing
great.
It's claymation, but it's made to
Yeah.
look like it's a
I
projector.
know.
That was like
I know.
Yeah. And I know we're talking about this movie, but I think that in Force Awakens, I think that movie works so well, especially compared to the other sequels, is that they really leaned into making everything as practical as they could.
There's a podcast I watched called Deep Focus Lens. Great reviews. But the one thing she said that I disagreed with is she thought John Williams' score was too good for Star Wars. And I vehemently, is that how you pronounce it? Vehemently or vehemently?
Probably.
Vehemently disagree. I think that the score is essential.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. George Lucas used to get into shouting matches with his film professors. This is not a play. This is not a novel. This is a movie. And in a movie, it's a combination of the image and the music and everything. And I think the music is so crucial and it's beautiful. What do you think, Josh?
It's brilliant. Yeah, no, I think it's also very important that it doesn't feel sci-fi-y, the music. Like it was written as if this was a fantasy because it is a fantasy movie.
Right.
And I think it adds so much to the audience's like believability of what's going on. I think if it was anything else, like I don't think it would be as memorable. Like I don't think that there's a world where this movie works without John Williams.
It's a little, like we said, it's lightning in a bottle. Everything, the editing, the music, the dialogue, the actors, it all worked together. Ian, what do you think?
There's a reason why movie scores sound the way they do in these genres nowadays. And that is because of this film and because of John Williams.
Yep.
A sci-fi prior to this tended to have sci-fi soundtracks, a lot of synthesizers, a lot of what's this going to sound like in the future. Not just that classic, no, it's a classical score with a live orchestra. And you're right, it is absolutely instrumental to every scene and every character. Every major character basically has their own theme. There are parts, okay, there's one part, and this stuck out to me at this viewing. The scene in the trash compactor, there's no music.
Yes.
And as a result, I found there was less tension. There was a bit less I
was tense.
Well, I mean, sure, but when Luke has this creature that grabs onto his leg and pulls him underwater, and it's just like there's no musical beat to this.
Okay.
It felt weird.
Okay.
It didn't feel as impactful as it could have been, and I put that on the lack of score there.
Okay.
Yeah, it did feel awkward. I think because I think that some silence would have been fine for that moment, right? Like if we had some music and then he gets pulled under and then it's silent and we're kind of reading people's faces and then
build it up and then let us sit in it.
But it's just quiet.
Yeah, good music will typically bring the emotion out. Like I said, I tell everybody the story about in high school watching a film. We had a music teacher who everyone said doesn't care, he's lazy, he's whatever, and he showed us Ghostbusters. We're like, yay, we get to watch a movie again. And then we spent 2 whole days watching the film, and then day 3 that week on a Wednesday, sat us down. He played the film again. We're like, "Are you for real? Like, is this guy just a bum?" Like,
Yeah.
and then he shut the sound off and left the room. And people were like, "What did he do?" And he came back, and someone walked up to the TV because it was all crappy TVs on the stand. And then he came back and he's like, "Don't touch that button." Shut it off. Left again. And he's like, "There's a reason I shut it off." And he's had us spend 2 days again watching the same film.
Must have been the extended version.
No, but it was short classes. No, but it was mind blowing the difference that it had.
Sure.
So the trash compactor thing, I think you don't need to draw the emotion out of the people. You sat there and picture yourself in that trash compactor, in that situation. You're like, oh God, like what's going to happen? And then the monster steals you, pulls you under the water. Everyone's panicking, and you're trying, and the silence. There's no screens, no whatever's. That's the scary part. And then after that, you hear the kunk kunk, and then the monster lets him go, and you're like, now what? The monster's scared. You know that if the monster's scared, crap's going to hit the fan. And that's what it was. So if anything, the silence was even more. Because you're just waiting for the doors to come in and the walls to come in.
I agree with you. I love the music, but I think it's actually fine to be absent from that scene 100%, I think. But I'll give you some other moments that I noticed, like when Obi-Wan Kenobi first shows up and he's got his hood on, and when he unveils it and the music has that kind of heavenly like harp. Oh my God. It's almost like John Williams was not writing the music for 1977. He was like, I'm going to write it for the fans in 2025. They're watching it in Meteor. Because when we watch it for the 80th time, it still hits when Luke walks out and looks at the double sunset. I had tears in my actual tears. How is it possible? Beautiful. It's still good all these years later, right?
But your point again, sorry, about the like it was overdone, it was too much, it was whatever. It's again, a film isn't just the visuals. It's 100% the audio as well. It's a package deal. So to go back and watch it anytime, any film, anytime whatsoever, it's got to work together harmoniously.
Right.
And what I get from the John Williams thing about being overdone, whatever's, if you're going to have something as big as Star Wars originally 50 years from now, whatever's, everything's got to hold up. And what I like about the score, the audio, the special effects in terms of sound and that is it's held up just as well as the visuals about the film, the acting, the special effects, anything. I noticed recently the symphonies that tour North America, the world, anywhere, and they do that. John Williams was called out recently at one of them. They talked about, they interviewed him briefly and talked about it, and they panned over to the crowd. Sure, there was cheering, but there were people in tears, like just bawling because he brings that presence, he brings that magnitude, that special factor, whatever, to everything. So it has to be there.
Okay, so at the beginning of this movie, Luke is kind of a dweeb.
He's a dweeb at the end too.
Yeah. I think especially he's very whiny, and like as a kid, I remember really relating to that. And then as I grew up, I kind of was like, all right, like Uncle Owen, I want to go to the Toshi station to make some power converter.
Suck it up, kid.
Like
Get back
it's
to
so
work.
whatever. So right before the binary sunset, he's like walking out of the little like hut in the ground, and he does a little and he like kicks
the rocks. He actually kicks the rocks. I noticed that.
I laughed, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And then that music kicks in, and he's like leaning and he's looking up, and it was like gone. That like the like humor of Luke Skywalker was immediately gone. I had shivers, and I related to the character again immediately. Like I like just in those few shots with the orchestra, it's you get the emotion.
Did John Williams make him the hero like that? It was like a switch.
It really did kind of feel like that. I got the same vibe
when I watched it. I was like, Jesus, cheesy. He's such a bratty kid, and then 2 seconds later, he sees the sunset. You're like, no, he's got this.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we also have to talk about we have to talk about the acting, because some people have dismissed the actors in this film. We got to talk about Harrison Ford again. This guy comes in like almost halfway through, and he just takes over the screen, and he takes over the story in a way. And I noticed something that in the beginning of the movie, we're focused on the droids. Then we're focused on Luke. The moment that Han comes in, Luke and Obi-Wan leave the scene, and now all of a sudden we're listening to what Han and Chewie have to say. You notice that? You know, we'll be rich or whatever. He's talking to Chewie now. Now it's all about Han and Chewie, and then Greedo comes in, and it's like the movie just switches gears. Now it's the Adventures of Han Solo for like one episode. It's so interesting, but I just think it's interesting that Harrison Ford comes into this movie. It's like his second movie ever, or third, and how the hell does this guy come in and he's cooler than everybody else in this movie?
He wasn't even supposed to be in this movie, right? Like
he was
the
a
famous
carpenter.
thing is, he just came because he was already in American Graffiti.
Yeah.
So he was just there helping them screen test for Leia.
We need you to read, for our
these
real
lines.
actors. Yeah.
And then they were trying to find Han, and then they were like, "No, you had gold the first time."
Do we know who else was considered for that role?
Kurt Russell,
Christopher Walken.
Christopher Walken?
Okay.
Yeah.
Weird.
Kurt Russell would have been the second best choice, but no one's better than him.
nobody
Can
could.
you imagine Christopher Walken?
Oh yeah, ridiculous, of course. Yeah.
Chewbacca.
But
I would love to hear Christopher Walken talk about Chewbacca.
of course, I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
But I'm serious. Like, I mean, people disparage the acting, but I mean, we have Peter Cushing from the Hammer horror films. We have Alec Guinness from Bridge of the River Kwai, as well as other things. And the bit part actors like Richard Leparmentier, he's great. Like these little guys, these actors who had one line, they sold their performance. They're all real people. And this is the huge mistake about the Clone Wars. No, the Stormtroopers are not clones of Jango Fett. They're individuals, and you hear them talking.
Yeah.
What do you think's going on? Probably another girl. Remember that?
Yeah,
Like, so the movie's jumping around, and we're listening to Han. We're listening to the Stormtroopers, right?
What something that stuck out to me this time was when Ben is turning off the tractor beam.
Yep.
The two guys are talking about like a cool gun that they got.
I didn't even notice that. Really, I didn't even notice that.
Oh yeah, I just got a new cool gun. I was firing it off or whatever. They're just having like a casual conversation.
I didn't even notice that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. And okay, we have to talk about. We talked about I called it awkwardness, but I guess I'll rephrase it as spontaneity and these rough edges. And these rough edges are then explained away in the prequels by George Lucas, okay? There's so many of them. But like in this film, they are on a spaceship and Luke wants to practice with his lightsaber. And what's laying around? Well, we have a helmet, and then Obi-Wan tells him to put down the blast shield. And then there's this little thing that's flying around. Then in Attack of the Clones, Lucas goes, okay, well, I know that the fans will recognize this, so I'll reuse it for the younglings practicing, which Red Letter Media criticized, right?
Oh, this is the worst scene of
it's
any
complete,
movie ever.
Because, again,
bunch of kids doing this.
Yeah, when we were kids, we go, okay, they're on the Millennium Falcon. I'm assuming this helmet with this blast shield, I imagined it as like a welding helmet. You have this screen that's going to block out, it's called a blast shield. It's going to block out the laser lights or whatever from your eyes. But the fact that they then put it on Coruscant as something every Jedi trains with is idiotic. These are just...
Especially when it's got like logos of right, the whatever, the Rebellion Star Force or whatever. It's like, why would... That's not... You're right. It's so dumb.
The cool thing about this movie is it's supposed to be random chance that like, oh, these two droids who they say our previous master was Captain Antilles. They don't know who Obi-Wan Kenobi is. Let's be clear. Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't know who they are. Obi-Wan Kenobi is hiding out on this planet disguised with the clever pseudonym of Ben Kenobi. No one will ever figure it out.
But maybe Kenobi's is a common last name.
The Smith of this galaxy.
You related to Obi-Wan from Canada?
yeah. But just all these random elements again. The fact that they have to explain them away ruins it. I think, right?
It absolutely does. It's almost as though George Lucas wants no loose threads at all.
Right.
And in doing so, he pulls all of the soul out of these encounters. Random stuff happens all the time, and that is kind of the point of this movie. That this random farm boy could randomly save the day in this grandiose fashion.
Right.
A week ago, he didn't think he'd be destroying the Death Star and saving the rebellion, but the chance fell into his lap.
Yes.
Just because some droids happened to land here. It has nothing to do with some greater overarching plot.
Yeah. Ryan?
Saving the day again.
Yeah. Well,
It's really 9 movies about R2D2. I'm just going to leave it there.
well, and the thing is, really, if you boil it down, this is a movie about R2D2 trying to get secret plans to Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's it. That's the plot. Everything else is kind of just like a byproduct of that. And the fact that you're right, the fact that it coincidentally fell into the lap of Luke, who I think when this was written, he's not supposed to be the second coming of Christ. He's just a random farm boy.
Yeah.
And he just, like in a Joseph Campbell story, he refuses the call. He's like, no, I can't help you. Sorry, Ben. Can't help you. Mm-hmm. And then because his uncle and aunt get killed, he then joins. But at any moment, he could have, remember, he says to Han, we don't have to listen to this. Mm-hmm. And he stands up and Ben pushes him back down. It wasn't destiny. It was just what happened by his choices and by a random happenstance, right? And then they fuck it all up with the prequels. But we're not going to talk about that. We're just going to focus on these movies. We're almost done, audience, but was there anything else we haven't covered you'd like to hear us talk about?
We actually have people here watching this.
Yeah, there's There's a huge audience, yeah.
Huge audience.
Is there anything we haven't covered you'd like us to talk about before we wrap it up?
Do you think this would stand the test of time if it was a single movie and didn't have sequels?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Because like we said, it could have happened. Even if this movie was as good as it was and it bombed, I think it would stand the test of time as a film. Yeah, I think it'd be like one of those cult movies that we would...
Like you said, it'd be a cult classic for sure. But even if it was one and done, they still left their mark, and they've left... That would have been all of the special effects and whatever's and yada yada. Other companies, other films, other directors could have taken that and kind of gone with it.
Right.
So it has its place regardless.
I think it's so good that today they would have made a legacy sequel of it if they hadn't made sequels back then.
Like Blade Runner, or you're right. That's a good point. I agree. Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I mean, despite the fact that George Lucas has maintained that it was always intended to be a trilogy and this sort of thing.
9 movies.
Or 9 movies. No, I don't think it was. I've never believed a word of that. I've always thought that this was the movie. He might have had some other ideas, but he was just making a movie and he made a movie. And the way that the movie ends with this, everyone just standing there like, hey, we won. Wearing almost everyone with a medal. Hopefully they deal with that in the future. But it's all wrapped up in a tidy package, and it almost feels as though there isn't an avenue for a sequel, and they just kind of made Empire happen. Right? It doesn't feel as though that was intended.
Well, from what I have pieced together, he wrote the outline for a huge story, and then he picked the most exciting section, which was this.
That's why.
But
that's why there's another Death Star in later movies.
Yes, because that wasn't...
Because that was supposed to be the third movie is like them finally destroying the Death Star.
Well, as far as I know, everything in Empire was outlined. Like, he outlined everything in Star Wars, everything in Empire, and parts of Jedi. But when he got to Jedi, he was like, well, I've only got enough for like 45 minutes. So we need to just make up this bullshit about them rescuing Han from Jabba the Hutt, which is why that section is not that great. But if he was smart, if he was smart, like Lawrence Kasdan's a good writer. He just said, Lawrence, go away for a couple days and write something really good. But instead they were like, who cares? The audience is going to watch it anyway, no matter what we do. Right?
He didn't, I don't think, I don't know the whole story 100% confirmed, but he didn't have a 1, 2, 3 and said, let's start with 4 because 1, 2, and 3 are kind of dry and gross. But he had something. He had an
outline, and
then he said, this is where it picks up. And that's why we started with 4.
Right.
When you go back and explain to kids nowadays, that's why we started with 4, because like you said, it was a huge gamble. And you're like, wow, the beginning is kind of meh, but this is cool because they start here and they do this.
And it was...
Although it wasn't called episode 4 at the beginning.
No.
Yeah, we mentioned that tonight, yeah.
And when they thought of Empire, they called it episode 5, but they could have called it episode 10. They just randomly picked 5 and said, okay, well, we're going to re-release Star Wars right before Empire comes out, so we're going to add in episode 4, like in 1980 or 79 or 80. But they could have. It was just coincidence that it was. We'll call it episode 4. Now there's 3 that we can do before that, right? But it could have been any random number.
It could have been any random number. And whenever I watched that as a kid, I always got the impression that they didn't do this to set it up for prequels. They did it because they wanted to drop us in
the middle,
the middle of a story.
Yes.
And have us understand that a lot of things happened before. We don't need to know what they are, but here we are now in the middle of this.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, I thought that
There's
it was
nothing wrong
great.
with that.
I thought it was great.
And even though I love James Bond, we didn't. Even though Casino Royale is a great movie, we did not need to explain where Moneypenny came from, and where M comes from, and where Q comes from, and where the shaken not stirred comes from. Right? We don't need. Even if you're not a James Bond fan, they had to explain everything. How did they all meet? Where did this come from? We don't need that.
There was no origin story anywhere.
Right.
It dropped us into the least boring part of
exactly as it should be.
Whatever's
So I guess we'll wrap up. I mean, there's so much we could say about this movie, but we'll say, first of all, I have to give a shout out to my cousin Mark Gilchrist for sending me the Blu-ray of this film, because I didn't know. I knew about the despecialized one, but I didn't know about Project 4K 77.
Should we talk
about
that too?
Yeah, we should talk about. That's the version we watched tonight.
Yeah.
Project 4K 77, which is a forecaster. It's 4 quads per channel. No, it's a 4K remaster of the original edit.
Yeah.
So it is grainy, it is dirty.
I don't even know if it's a remaster, if you could really qualify it as that. I've watched, and I think we all have watched Harmy's despecialized editions.
Yes.
Which is it's a project to recreate what the Blu-ray version would look like if it were the original edit. So it takes a lot of the Blu-ray footage, a lot of the stuff is cleaned up, like matte lines and that sort of thing. This here, I think it's just a straight 4K transfer. And there may have been some adjustments to the color grading, but there wasn't anything that I would call remastering.
Yeah, you're right. It's basically, I'm assuming, a scan of the film. So that's why there's grain. That's why there's those little circles for
cigarette
syncing.
burns.
Yeah, you can see it in the film.
Notice those right away. And that made me feel like I was in a theater.
Right,
I loved seeing
exactly.
that.
Yep. So yes, original edit, no CGI, no Jabba the Hutt, right? I prefer this version.
No giant dinosaurs.
Nothing. This film was perfect. What?
As I was doing a bit of research for the promo for this, are you aware that there's another other edit that has been released in 2019, I think?
Yeah.
The Disney Plus.
McClunky.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's that?
Greedo says McClunky for no reason right before he's shot.
They add in another line for him.
No,
and
right
it's in a slightly different voice.
You think Disney? Oh
Yeah.
no!
Yeah,
Stop.
I think it
Not
got.
even Lucas?
I think it got so much hate that they reversed it again. Though I think it's back to.
I read something that suggested that Lucas made that change right before he sold everything to Disney.
Can I just point out, this movie is not Freddy Got Fingered. This movie's Star Wars. There's a lot of people have seen it, and a lot of people have seen it many, many times. Actually, a lot of people have seen Freddy Got Fingered many times too. But if you're gonna mess with a movie, you don't mess with what's still the second most popular movie ever made in America, ever. And the fact that Lucas is like, well, people are going to forget about the theatrical cuts.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Good luck, because here we are illegally watching the original theatrical cuts, and we don't care. We're still going to keep doing it.
It's only illegal if you get caught.
What's that?
It's only illegal if you get caught.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And no one watches this
don't tell anyone.
podcast, so it doesn't matter.
Would you download a car?
Would
you download a Star Wars?
If we refuse, and as I do, I refuse to buy the special editions on Blu-ray or stream them on Disney. If I keep forcing myself to watch the original edits, then Lucasfilm is going to have to take notice. There's this one asshole in Windsor, Ontario. He refuses to buy these on the remastered editions.
That's the great thing about living in the future is that we have people that have the technology in their homes to sit down and remaster a feature film in a way that rivals the way that the studios do.
Yes, exactly.
This is brilliant. And the Harmy's Despecialized Edition is brilliant as well.
Yeah.
And in many ways, that's more impressive than this because they're actually sitting going frame by frame and fixing all these things.
I think we kind of had like a small little conversation before we started recording about you had assumed that I liked the
You know what? I realized
Other
I
ones
confused
better?
you with someone else I
Okay,
know
yeah.
named Armando. I confused you with Armando. Armando said he prefers the special editions.
because I prefer this more. I don't hate the idea of a specialized version of these movies, but I think it's kind of what you were talking about, though. I don't mind them going in and fixing things that
matte lines and all that.
or they forgot to in the first place. Like
Sure.
when the escape pod in the ground still has like the green screen
Of course,
thing on it. You know what I mean? Like
you can
small
fix
little
that,
things like
yeah.
that you fix if you're gonna do this like remaster. But I don't think that you change anything. You don't add scenes. You don't
Right, I
add
agree. Yes.
Rontos walking around in front of the
Exactly.
camera. Like it doesn't make any sense.
Nobody in 1978 thought to themselves, "Wow, if only Greedo said McClunky
McClunky.
right before he died,
Yeah.
There you go.
this would be a 10 out of 10."
Okay, so speaking of, I give this film. This film goes up to 11.
Yeah.
I think I don't care what anyone says. It is one of the best films ever made. Even though there's rough edges that we talked about, it's still one of the most best films ever made. Josh,
No, it's perfect. Even with its flaws, I think that it adds to it. I think it's brilliant. There's nothing really I would change about it. I don't think. Like it's
neither.
a 10 out of 10 movie. Yeah.
champion.
Movies are an art form, and I think that as films get more technologically advanced with more CGI and there's a bit of humanity that gets lost. You don't see any of the rough edges, which makes it feel less human in a way. It doesn't feel as though people are making these things.
Right.
It doesn't feel as though artists are crafting this stuff. When you see people pushing up against the limitations of what the tools that they have are capable of, it's really impressive. When the special effects in this movie, the models and the mats and everything, it's clearly 1977, but it's state of the art in 1977. They don't try and push it too far. They don't try and take things where they shouldn't, and as a result of that, it's just there's an ineffable quality, and it's I think a masterpiece is not giving it enough credit on many different levels, and I'm talking more about it as an entire project, the sort of thing that you might be a part of the crew on.
Sure.
And oh my God, to work on something like that must have been absolutely magical compared to working on a comparable film nowadays, which is just you sitting at a computer, not you hanging out with a bunch of like-minded people trying to think like, how am I going to make it look like this spaceship is flying down a trench when all I have is a model of a spaceship and this giant trench that we built.
Right.
How much fun that would have been.
There's always that question when you watch an old film of how did they do that, right? And it's always it's like it's a magic trick.
Yeah.
How did they make the woman disappear or saw her in half or whatever? Anyway, Ryan, out of 10, what do you give this film?
Beep boop boop beep beep. Boop. I give it 5 Toshi power converters out of 5 because I don't want to imagine my life or the world without Star Wars. That'd be a dark, bleak, sad place.
That's right.
Because Star Wars. That's it. That's all I got.
The world would be different.
Zero bad motivators here.
Yes, we'd be living in a slapshot world if there was no Star Wars. But anyway, we want to thank Champion for hosting Movie Night at Meteor.
Anytime, guys.
5.1 or 7.1 surround sound.
5.1 for now, although we'll see what
Who
happens
knows,
in the future.
right? Yeah, 5.1, gigantic screen. You can kind of see it behind us here. We had a lot of people come up for Star Wars tonight. We have movies every Wednesday, sometimes Tuesday. We are going to be showing Empire Strikes Back eventually, soon-ish.
I hope soon, yeah.
But before that, we're going to be showing X-Men. We're going to be showing Paprika,
Yep, Paprika.
as well as other films. So be sure to join us every Wednesday at Meteor.
Not Star Trek 5, though.
Not Star Trek 5, sorry. Maybe Star Trek 6 eventually. But yeah, Josh, where can you find these episodes?
You can find all of our stuff over on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. You can also find the video format versions on our YouTube channel, so check us out there. And yeah.
That's right. And we want to thank Ryan for joining us again. You're welcome to join us anytime.
It's fun.
That's right.
As
Until
long as you dress
next time.
appropriately.
Yes.
Woo! See you later. Bye. Thank you. On shot first. Was that you the clap, TJ? When they
Actually, that was not me. Although that was a good friend of mine that was here.
Okay.
I said to someone when that happened, I was like, "Oh, that person has gone on a long arguments, being like, on shot first," and he finally got vindicated.
It was not me. It was a friend of mine I was sitting at the table with, but I was at the bar at that time. But I did see it, and I do appreciate it.
That was one of the bastardized edits, right? Like later down the road.
Yes.
In this film, it's just smoke and chaos.
Yes.
It's not two separate lasers shooting.
No, it was a special edition in 96, 97 when they started messing with it.
Yeah.
And went further from that. I say as I take my blaster.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the most one of the most controversial additions. Is
Speaking of controversial takes, I think watching it this time, I had a controversial take. When did the McClunky thing show up? It's believed that it's a Lucas thing just before selling it, or it's when Disney got it. It's a different voice.
Why? Like what?
It's sort of similar.
No. And this is the sad thing.
Right before.
Is like Lucas.
Disney got it before he funded it.
Independent filmmaker ever, because he funded Empire on from his own pocket.
Yeah.
But this is the danger of having too much power and no one standing over your shoulder going, Luke. I mean, Lucas. Like
Stop editing the film. Call me Luke.
Yeah, like trust the Force. With
Yeah.
this, right? Jesus.
Oh. Also,
Okay,
Hot
so
take.
I think now it's become such a big part of Star Wars. I can't picture it without it. But this is a standalone movie. I think that the opening crawl is unneeded. I think that we get all of the backstory of everything going on with what's happening in the movie.
No.
We know about the Empire. We know what their plans are. We know that we get like the story of what Leia is doing with R2, and we learn that later on as Luke learns it through Ben. Like, I think that everything in it is not needed.
Okay.
And I think that they lean on the crawl. They lean on the crawl in all of the other movies where it's needed for those movies.
Can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
I didn't even read the crawl tonight. You're technically right. It's not needed for the story, but it's needed for the style of recreating a Flash Gordon serial, because that's where it comes from. So you have to have it because that's what it's focusing on.
It is needed exactly for that point, and also for context for the weight of what's going on in the movie.
I disagree.
So you think it is necessary for the story?
It is necessary for the point that it is a Flash Gordon, homage. But I think it is there specifically to set up the stakes, because it talks about the Galactic Empire, but realistically,
What does that mean?
No. But here's the thing: we only see Tatooine, we see the moon of Yavin, and we see Alderaan blown up.
I guess
So realistically, we see a moon.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, that's a good point.
This movie, and I generally agree with you.
But no, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. But this is setting up that it's trying to be more.
I don't know that necessarily, because it's sure maybe it sets up that this is a big galactic thing, but once the movie actually starts, 90 seconds in, it doesn't matter.
No,
It's a big galactic thing, because the
no.
movie is, despite the fact that it's in space, it's very small.
It is.
It's very small, very
true.
compact.
I gotta explain what you're saying. We only see Mos Eisley, or what is it? Tatooine,
Yeah.
the Death Star, and that's
Alderaan from the outside.
and then the moon.
And
Yeah.
then the moon
That's
of
it.
Yavin. We
That's
see
it.
the
We don't see
moon.
Coruscant.
No.
We don't
Nothing,
see.
yeah.
We don't actually see anything on Alderaan.
No.
Even a cutaway shot to people like walking
Yeah.
around.
No.
Well, we see like some of it flying by.
Yeah, we see pieces of it.
Wait, is this an asteroid field? What?
Yeah, exactly.
But no, we are at really like 3 locations throughout the whole thing. Well, no, okay, I'll say 4. I'll say 4 because you have Tatooine. So 5. 5. Because the opening shot is outside the Star Destroyer, bringing in the attentive 4.
Well,
Opening shot.
okay, so here's my argument though. I think the line of the Galactic Empire is at stake does not matter because we hear from Darth Vader and like the Council and Tarkin that they are forcing all of these planets to align with them, and whoever is going to disagree is going to get blown up.
Yes.
I don't think when all we see is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away in Star Wars, then we read the crawl. The Galactic Empire just means shit to me. I don't know anything about anything. Like it's all I know at that point is Star Wars.
You know what? I agree with you because I don't know fucking shit all about the galactic trade routes.
Right? Like it, yeah, like it
We need the
doesn't
prequels to set all this up.
really. That's what
Galactic trade routes.
Trade
What the
routes, stormtroopers banging their head off shit. Why is
No,
this explained?
I get it. I think this movie does it better than the others because it's trying to set the stakes, whereas in every other movie it's trying to catch you up to speed. Whereas this one, this is the first movie put out. It's like, hey, this is what's going on. These are the stakes. And then in Empire and Giants, like, oh, you've seen those other movies? We're going to catch you up to speed instead of showing it to you visually. Here's all this awesome shit we're not going to show you.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of overthinking the whole thing, right? Like, no, it's not needed, but the movie wouldn't be the same without it.
Yeah.
Was it intended to set something up? Blah, 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 blah. No, I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that, no, George Lucas just liked Flash Gordon.
Right.
And he says, I want that in my movie. And
Yes.
he put it in his movie.
Right.
And I think that that's all the thought that went into it.
In fact, I'll expand on that. When Luke says, "Oh, you fought in the Clone Wars," there was no thought put into that other than we're in World War II. You fought in World War One. That's all.
Oh,
it is.
now we have to do prequels to
Yeah.
explain what World War One was.
Yeah, right. So it's like he didn't have to have the line "You fought in the Clone Wars," but because he put it in, it makes our brains go, "Oh my God, there's another story before this." And like when C-3PO is walking through the desert, and there's a giant skeleton of what? This weird monster, whatever it is. It's like, oh my
Which
God.
it took the HD versions for me to even know what the fuck that was.
Right.
I always thought that it was just like little people. Like when I first saw the movie for the first 100,000 times, watching it on VHS on a CRT television, I thought that those were Jawas.
Oh really? Okay.
Because they're all like little pointy.
Okay. But I mean, I think it benefits from not explaining it.
Yeah.
Your brain just goes, this is an old civilization or whatever. And Lucas thankfully did that even in Phantom Menace. When they're on Naboo, there's like ancient statues that are half covered in grass. Like, so he kept up that tradition. And J.J. Abrams did it in Force Awakens, right? When things are half buried.
Things in the world, you don't have
Right.
to explain what every single one of
Right,
them are.
right,
Like,
right.
We don't need a tour guide to the movie saying, "Oh, see that."
I agree. I agree with everything everyone just said right up until the last fucking Star Wars movie. You don't have to explain anything, but hey, suddenly Emperor Palpatine has reappeared.
Well, yeah, that's
Well, that's different. No, because
Oh
that's
my God.
Yeah, that's
Like
a
it's-
plot hole.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
like a weak.
It's not. That's
That's
not
not
world
it.
building.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah.
I'm playing devil's advocate. But